Please. If you're after my soul, just take it!
No. Something requires your attention. It is a matter of utmost importance.
What's that?
I have Starbucks French roast coffee. I was wondering if you wanted a cup.
Oh my god, yes! Star motherfucking Bucks! Woohoo! Woohoo!
And so, the Tails Doll and Greatexpectations320 had a wonderful afternoon together, enjoying some delicious Starbucks coffee.
Uh-oh.
One day, in Greatexpectations320 land, Greatexpectations320 was happy to have caught a great night's sleep.
Great night's sleep? A great night's sleep?
Greatexpectations320 decided that he was going to review another video game.
Review another game?
And that was when he found Play with the Teletubbies for the PlayStation 1 sitting on his coffee table.
Play with Teletubby PlayStation 1?
What a lovely game for you to review.
Lovely game. Hey, wait a minute. What in the fucking shit am I doing? I can't review Teletubbies on the PS1. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala, and Poe as much as the next 4-year-old, but there's just not enough to say about this game to make a very in-depth review out of. All you do in it is wander throughout Teletubby Land as one of the 4 titular characters and play these weird little mini-games occasionally, and calling some of them games at all is definitely a stretch. There is literally nothing else to say about it. So if I'm supposed to review something today, just what game in Sam Hill am I supposed to review? I figured as much. Well, if I can't review it, then I might as well just enjoy it, right? Yeah, it's a good idea.
Again.
This is actually really relaxing. Even if the camera occasionally feels like it's drunk and the graphics look like cat puke. Pity I couldn't really review it, but it was interesting anyway. You know, that was pretty fun back in the day, wasn't it? All that game reviewing I did for all those people who watched me on the internet. I wonder why I stopped doing that exactly. Well, best I can figure is somewhere along the line the thrill of it all just disappeared. But for what reason? That's what I'd like to know. God damn. That's right. Helsing. He died. It's been forever since I last visited.
As I opened my eyes this morning, I realized that life still goes on. But lately, my life has no meaning because of someone that's gone. A life that ended too early made my world fall apart. And now I'm left here without you, with sadness and pain in my heart. Gone too soon, you had left me. You took the stars and the moon. The sun doesn't shine quite like it used to, because you were gone too soon. I put on a brave face for others. I try to be strong amongst friends. But I'm still thinking about you.
I can't remember if you like
As
whiskey
yet,
or not.
Another day ends.
But in any case, you have a
I know
drink
this
on me,
hurt
man.
I am feeling will never get better again. You have left such an emptiness, now filled with sorrow and pain.
You know what? I think I need to talk to an old friend. Good thing I never uninstalled Skype from here.
Hello?
Hey, dude.
Great expectations. Been forever since I last heard from you. What's up, man? How have you been?
Well, I haven't exactly been spending a lot of time online lately.
In fact, I've been kinda down in the dumps as of late.
Oh, unfortunate. Although it was a pretty long time that I never saw you come online, on Skype that is, so I figured something must have been wrong. How long have you been feeling this way?
Honestly, ever since Helsing 920's death.
I know. I wish he was still alive too.
He was one of us, man. One of the angry reviewers that helped make what we did back then so much fun. Right there alongside Armake 21, Wizwar 100, Jedi 1, Urinating Tree, Silent Rob, and me.
Yes, he was. But he's been gone for many years now. At some point you'll have to get past this.
I don't think I'm going to, man. I think his death is just too deep of a wound for me to heal from. Besides, the angry reviewing scene on YouTube has been dormant for ages now, except for the angry video game nerd, the one who went and paved the way for us all. And since a prominent member of the scene is gone now, I don't see how it could ever again become the fun that it used to be. So what do I have left to live for? Gaming was, is, and will always be my heart and soul, my sustenance. Without it, I'm lost.
I'm sorry you feel that way, dude. But at the same time, I don't know what else to tell you.
What's there left to discuss? I think I'm just gonna chug down 3 cans of Four Loko as fast as I can and let the sweet embrace of alcohol poisoning run its course.
Damn it, don't do that.
What, you think I wouldn't love to just go back one time and pretend it's 2007 again? Well, I can't. I hate to say it. I'm old. I'm tired. Still cynical, bitter, and now drunk on grief. Depressed as fuck, too.
Don't you think if Helsing realised that reviewing games was really what set your heart afire, he would want you to continue?
Well, I suppose so. But still, I've been out of the reviewing loop for so long that I don't think I would even know what game to tackle at this point.
Why don't you start with something he would have loved?
You mean like as a tribute to him?
In a sense, yes.
Well, I guess it's worth a try.
Awesome, there we go.
Well, I guess now I better figure out what game I'm covering.
Look, since you and I have been friends for a pretty long while now, why don't you leave that to me? I still have your address somewhere in my files, so expect a package in the mail sometime soon.
Thanks, man. By the way, do you have any idea how the Tails doll got my address?
Oh, yeah. And I were in the midst of an intense Yu-Gi-Oh duel some time ago, and both of us made a bet that whoever won got to send the most dark and intimidating creature we knew to your house and scare the ever-loving shit out of you as a joke. Had I won, it would have been the final form of Ansem from Kingdom Hearts, but obviously that wasn't what happened. I hope there are no hard feelings, man.
Well, I did have to change my pants after the fact, but that's okay.
Shit! Goddamn fucking hate nightmares. Hello? Uh-huh. Seriously? Play me? This isn't even a legitimate copy of whatever game this is supposed to be. I knew my friend was a cheap bastard. I didn't know he was that cheap. He did take the time to send this out to me all the way from Scotland, though. So, I guess it wouldn't be completely fair to him if I didn't at least give it a chance. And I can't believe I'm actually doing this, but here goes nothing. This one's for you, Helsing. Okay, this is not a video game. It's genius! So, do you know what this means? It means that I have officially come out of retirement. I have emerged from the dark abyss of inactivity. Oh, to hell with it. This is Greatexpectations320, and I've come home, motherfuckers!
If I bleed tonight, if I am sad tonight, I don't have a job to find. And if I work tonight, if I'm so tired tonight, I'll fall asleep when I'm home, when I'm home.
So this is Klonoa, Door to Phantomile on the PlayStation 1.
The publisher was the illustrious Namco of Pac-Man fame, who also designed the game and released it here in North America in 1998, although Japan got to experience the game about 4 months before we did. Lucky sons of bitches. Our protagonist is this little kid creature who I'm guessing is anywhere from 8 to 11 years old, named Klonoa, and his best friend Hugh-Pow, a circular little spirit being that lives inside this magical ring that Klonoa carries around with him all the time. But what kind of a creature is Klonoa exactly? Well, I'll tell you what he is. He's like similar to hedgehog-esque. Okay, he's like the resulting birth of a wolf, an eagle, and a hedgehog all teamed up and had a massive orgy, okay? I was wondering why it reminded me of Sonic so much. Now, what is this game all about? Well, rather than explaining the entire plot all at once, I believe this is a story that, as great as it is best digested in small chunks at a time rather than immediately and 100%. Since this is the very route the game chooses to take, I think I'll do the same for my review. Phantom Isle is the magical land where the story of this game takes place. In our very first cinematic cutscene, Klonoa himself is enjoying a nice stroll through a forest when suddenly something gigantic falls from the sky and crash lands on the ground, half burying it. When Klonoa draws closer, he sees that it's a giant ring.
What? Why don't I have a giant Don't even start that. Greatexpectations320 came into this world a single man. He is going to his grave a single man.
After a long struggle, he finally manages to unearth this giant ring, but this results in him being knocked on his ass. But then the ring's gem begins to glow, and out of it pops Hugh-Pow, the adorable orb-shaped spirit being. The two of them immediately become best friends and start having adventures and spending loads of time together. One day the two of them are happily playing together on a mountaintop when a sudden darkness overtakes the sky. Then the ground begins quaking. And then he awakes in his bedroom realizing that Hugh-Pow is right there with him, has been for the entire time, and most of everything he just experienced was a dream. Or was it? In the first in-game cutscene, something does fall from the sky and crash land right into the mountain, just like in Klonoa's dream. When the two of them realize this, they both leave home to conduct an immediate investigation. This is where the game finally puts you in control. So the game is a 2.5D, or also known as 2.5D, side-scrolling action platformer. If you don't know what 2.5D is, it means 3D graphics that are restricted to a 2D perspective. Other examples of games in this category would be games like Pandemonium, Super Smash Bros., and Yoshi's Story. Some people I know aren't the biggest fans of side-scrollers, but even if that's you, I think you would be missing out by not playing this game. You can tell the developers really took full advantage of the 2.5D aesthetic and put a great many hours of work into populating each level with detailed, colorful backgrounds and props to give them life. Even compared to today's modern games, this holds up really well and has to be some of the most gorgeous level design I have seen in a video game to this very day. And thanks to the fluid and precise controls, the levels are an absolute joy to experience. On the first level of the game, you stumble into a castle where you are then screamed at almost immediately by the owner of this castle, some old fella. Now what I find interesting is that the very first thing he says to you is, "How dare you go through my tower without even saying hello?" You guys ever see that video of that batshit insane feminist that tried to accuse an older gentleman of sexually harassing her just because he said hello to her?
Don't fucking say hello to me, bitch. Don't fucking say hello. I don't play that sexual harassment shit. Bitch, you shouldn't have been sexually harassing me. I can call the cops on you for that. Fat funky motherfucker. Who the fuck you think you're talking to?
I'm just saying, guys. You got people like this character who are angered by you not saying hello to them, and people like this feminist lady who seem to misinterpret the very action of you saying hello to them in the absolute worst possible and most illogical way.
You just can't win with today's society now, can you?
We learn that the castle owner's name is Baloo, spelled B-A-L-U-E, not B-A-L-O-O like the Jungle Book character. Anyway, he tells us all about a giant stone statue he himself carved, which rests just beyond the castle itself. The giant statue is that of the land's legendary diva named Lafiz, who sings a magical song every single morning that, through its power, helps to maintain the state of peace and harmony within this land. Soon enough, you'll understand why him giving us this information was important. Now, Klonoa has a very interesting twist on the classic game formula of get from start to finish while avoiding or mowing down all enemies in your path. To kill enemies in the game, you simply pick them up and then toss them away, which sends them flying into the nearest obstacle where they then explode into nothingness. Now, you aren't actually supposed to kill every single enemy in the game. Some of the enemies can only be killed temporarily, and therefore will continue to respawn no matter how many times you try to kill them. This might throw you for a loop at first, but you'll soon discover that it was designed this way for a reason. In many places of the game, you're supposed to use the respawning enemies to kill the non-respawning enemies. On other occasions, the game also has you use respawning enemies for a double jump maneuver to help you complete long jumps that you wouldn't otherwise be able to make. This concept probably doesn't seem cutting edge anymore, but for 1998, this was clever stuff. Throughout the game are little collectibles you can pick up, the most common of these being the little green gems. Collect 100 of these babies, and you get an extra life. Sweet deal, huh? And the best part is, if you take damage from an enemy or obstacle, you still get to hang on to them. The game doesn't make you have to collect them all over again. Unlike another popular video game franchise I know. The second level, you'll notice, mostly takes place in a darker area, a mine to be exact. In terms of lighting and atmosphere, this is a direct contrast to level 1. From this we observe the level design also has variety, which is great, because if the levels all looked alike, the game's graphics would get kinda bland after so long, and that wouldn't be good. At the end of the level, Klonoa and Hupao finally reach their destination at Bell Hill, with an unpleasant surprise. Lafiz, the diva the game told us about earlier, has been captured by the evil Gadius and his clown face wearing henchman Joka. Gadius reveals that he intends to, in his own words, imprison the diva in darkness. By the way, does that henchman remind me of anyone? Nah, it couldn't be. After the two villains discover that their plot has been overheard, Gadius takes to the sky, and Joka forces Klonoa and Hupao to come out of hiding. He then summons a giant monster that looks like some kind of bizarre cross between a toucan and a peacock that you have to fight. This boss battle's pretty easy if I'm honest. Literally all you have to do is keep picking up respawning enemies and throwing them at his ass. Well, monster, you may have a sore tookus after this, but the pain could have been worse. Especially if Roman Polanski had been here. So after you finish the motherfucker off, Joka runs away vowing revenge. After this, they both notice that something has fallen onto the ground, a moon-shaped pendant. They decide to ask Klonoa's grandfather about the whole affair and see what he thinks. He tells them that it's a crest that goes to the fabled Moon Kingdom, although he says he isn't sure whether or not the Moon Kingdom really exists. After telling him about Gadius' abduction of Lafiz, his advice is to venture into Forlock Forest and ask the character of Granny for help. With that, Klonoa and Hupao rush back outdoors and start heading there immediately. By level 3, the addition of alternate pathways you have to figure out how to reach is introduced, and this is definitely something that shows how layered and intricate the level design starts becoming in the later levels, along with the addition of collecting keys for doors you have to unlock in order to progress in the game. If you've been playing video games for many years like myself, then by and large, the first few levels should be a breeze for you, although some of the enemies start getting a little more challenging to avoid in this level, like for example, this guy here who charges at you with a spiky shield. So my advice to you is this: if you're gonna play this game, collect as many extra lives as possible on the earlier, less challenging levels, because the last 2 or 3 levels of this game are hard as fuck, and I am not kidding. One of the other things you have probably noticed about this game by now is its approachable, cutesy characters and overall inviting look and feel. At first glance, some people may distance themselves and write the game off as looking too kiddie, but I honestly think the game's sweet and innocent atmosphere is an integral part of what makes it, for lack of a better word, beautiful. The characters and cutscenes of this game are the kind of thing that furries masturbate to, okay? God, that is a disturbing thought. Why did I mention that for? Ew! But anyway, on the happenstance that there are any concerned parents watching this video, I'm telling you right now, relax. This is a game you can let your children play. Before the end of level 3, we reach a total dead end where a soldier stands in our way. Now this guard actually comes from a place called Jugpot, or the Water Kingdom. Apparently, his purpose in coming to Forlock was also to convene with Granny, before he too reached this dead end. Anyway, the fact that a Jugpot soldier is there raises suspicion that there's some kind of trouble in Jugpot, but when Klonoa asks him whether or not that's the case, he tells us that it is a state secret. Since there is no progressing in this land beyond this point, Klonoa and Hupao both decide it's in their best interest to travel to Jugpot and do some more investigating. The first odd thing we notice in Jugpot level 4, which in my humble opinion is one of the most gorgeous levels in the game, is a waterfall that appears to be flowing backwards. At the end of the level, we are given a mission to set Carl free from solitary confinement. We do this by throwing a switch.
Carl! I know you've done something.
Whatever do you mean?
No, not that Carl. Sheesh. That Carl is a demented and sociopathic llama, when in fact, this Carl is a sweet and very innocent dolphin-like fish that ends up being a tremendous help to us later in the game. Anyway, after we set him free, Klonoa asks Carl how he ended up imprisoned in the first place. He tells us that weirdos came and messed up the castle. I'm pretty sure you can guess who he means by weirdos. Yep, those guys. Anyway, he promises to take us to the castle as long as we try to unhinge his mother from an evil spell that was cast on her during the castle's takeover. Klonoa and Hupao both accept, and it's off we go. At the castle, we meet quite a scoundrel named Sidoff, who makes his affiliation with Gadius known to us very clearly, so we assume he's not one of the good ones. You'll know what I mean by this later. It is right about then when he unleashes the wrath of Pamela upon us, the very mother under the evil spell that our lovable fish friend spoke of. This boss isn't very difficult either, if I'm honest. All you really have to do is wait until Sidoff becomes in reach to you, swipe him off one of the rolling spiked balls, and then toss him into Pamela, who consistently charges at you. After defeating them both, we learn that Sidoff was actually under an evil spell too, and is actually a very innocent, pleasant fellow. After Klonoa and Hupao fill him in on what happened, he becomes concerned that Gadius has something catastrophic in store that involves the Moon Kingdom, and also for Forlock's Granny, who is apparently one of the few characters in Phantomile with knowledge of the Moon Kingdom. This also explains the backwards flowing waterfall from earlier, which was an effort from Gadius to kill off Forlock Forest by keeping water from flowing to all of its land and trees. Now the mission is to reach Forlock's Granny before Gadius and Joka get to her. Before departing, one of the last things that's told to us is that Pamela, Carl's mom, is back to normal. Don't you just love happy endings? So in level 5, we revisit Forlock, the good old tree village, and it looks much better this time around because all of its trees, plants, and vegetation in general are starting to come back to life. Along the way, you'll encounter a couple of new enemies like these bouncy spring-bottomed things and these giant bees/pink ants that shoot spiked balls at you. Did I mention that some of these enemies may have to be nicked twice in order to eliminate them? Well, if I didn't before, I'm mentioning it now. It's more or less a continuation of what we experienced on previous levels. More pathways that twist and turn the camera, more keys to collect, although there is a roller coaster-esque ride segment that shows up out of nowhere as a pleasant surprise. At the end of the level, we reach another dead end. One of the guards we met earlier shows up again, and after greeting us with a friendly "Yippee!" sends us flying into a hole to the next stage on a levitating wooden platform and tells us to go save Granny. The mission remains the same, folks. In level 6, you'll encounter exploding enemies which are to be used to activate switches that open up certain areas in the game that you need to go through in order to progress. I have to say, this took me by surprise at first. The only annoying part about it is that if you don't realize almost immediately what you're supposed to do with those enemies, yeah, that might happen to you. Also, people, I will say right now that this probably takes the cake for being my least favorite level in the whole game, simply due to this fucking annoying wooden contraption that you have absolutely no choice but to use in order to experience the rest of the level. This is where I find that the game gets a little too complex and confusing with all the different directions there are to go and areas to navigate your way through. For example, after you reach this one particular point in the game and activate this giant moving gear, literally the only way to move past this point is to backtrack all the way to this one room way towards the beginning of the level. Could they have made it any more obnoxious? It took me forever to figure out where to go to reach this fucking room. This section of the game should appeal most to gamers who have fun spending copious amounts of time trying to figure out how to progress. But since this is my review, I have to speak for myself, and as for me, this was no goddamn fun. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the element of challenge in a video game, but not when you feel the need to turn the game into a fucking labyrinth in order to do that. No, 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 no! Go away! I am not reviewing you! God, that's gonna haunt me in my nightmares. Anyway, when you finally get to the last room, you find this wooden elevator that takes you upwards. That's when we end up outdoors and behold the sight of Forlock's granny being held hostage by none other than Joka. When he discovers that Klonoa and Hugh-Pow have arrived, he disappears like the coward that he is and sends another one of his monsters after us. This one is called Gelbohm, and this guy's not hard to defeat either. Just consistently drop enemies into his open mouth and he's done. Really, if I have any complaints with this game at all, it's that the first few boss battles are ridiculously easy and could have been made a little more challenging. Anyway, after he's defeated, we learn that Joka was holding Granny hostage because he thought that she knew where the moon pendant was. She tells us that the safety of the Moon Kingdom and the dream that creates their world has been jeopardized. Granny informs us of a legend that states that a floating castle in the sky, called the Temple of the Sun, will open up a path for you to tread if you lay down an offering on each of its pedestals. As the conversation continues, Klonoa assures Granny that the moon pendant is safe at home with his grandfather. But unfortunately, it turns out that Joka was hiding in the background this whole time, eavesdropping on them, and once he hears of this, he sets a course for Klonoa's house in Breezegale, again, the Wind Village. Afterwards, Klonoa and Hugh-Pow are told about a shortcut by Granny to hopefully help them get there faster than Joka. Now we arrive at level 7, where we trek through that very shortcut Granny told us about. A couple of new enemies that pop up are these ghost-like things that are presumably the dark spirits that Gadius occasionally mentions being in league with, and this thing surrounded by spinning fireballs that looks like a demon-possessed Furby. One other important point, people, you better make sure you have that double jump maneuver mastered by this point in the game, because in this particular level, you're gonna have to use it a lot. If you try to go through this level without it, you will get anally raped. With a meat cleaver. At the end of the level, we find out that Klonoa and Hugh did arrive home before Joka showed up, but unfortunately they just didn't arrive soon enough. Klonoa and Hugh are at such a distance away that they have no choice but to watch in horror as old Bad News himself appears with his hovercraft in a matter of seconds, wipes out their house with a gigantic laser cannon blast, and flies away taking the moon pendant with him. And to top it all off, he sends, you guessed it, another one of his monsters after us. This one looks like a crazy mashup between a snake, a dragon, and a dragonfly. For those of you who are familiar with Cinemassacre's YouTube channel, you might recall years ago that Mike Matei was highly critical of this boss battle in his own review of the game, calling the controls bad and the design poor and the overall experience frustrating. My own sentiments about the controls are more mixed than anything else. I feel like once you get the hang of them, they are pretty manageable, but you know what? I can actually sympathize with Mike on this. I can't help but agree that the design could have been a little better. What you're supposed to do is grab one of the respawning enemies and toss it straight into one of the monster's colored weak spots. And when I say hit those colored weak spots, I mean that if your hit is off by a fucking millimeter, the enemy will ricochet right off the son of a bitch. Your aiming has to be almost 100% precise, and unfortunately this is hampered significantly by not only the fact that this monster is constantly swaying from left to right, but also by this monster constantly throwing projectiles in your path that you have to dodge, while this platform you are standing on, a giant log, is constantly swaying towards and then a distance away from the monster. I understand that since this was right about the midway point in the game that they were trying to make this as challenging as they could, but let's face it, you have to draw the line somewhere. And I think a few less projectiles or giving you a little more space to dodge them definitely would have lent a little bit more fairness to the sudden difficulty spike. So what happens after you beat him? Okay, I need to issue a warning to you viewers right now. When I decided to review this game, I decided not only to analyze every aspect as much as possible, but also to look at each and every level in as much detail as possible. This has resulted in me telling the game's story as it has been progressing. Right about here is where vital parts of the story begin to unfold. If you haven't played this game and do not wish to have the experience of the story spoiled for you, I highly recommend you shut off this video right now, go obtain a copy of this game somewhere. My recommendation would be through the PSN network if computer emulation isn't an option. Play it from beginning to end and then come back to this video picking up where you left off. Unless that is, you don't care. Otherwise, spoilers lie ahead, people. You have been warned. We find out that Klonoa's grandfather barely survives the atomic explosion caused by Joka's hovercraft. Klonoa urges him to stop talking and save what little energy he has left, but it's no use. In his final moments, he instructs Klonoa to retrieve the moon pendant from Joka's clutches. Then his breathing comes to an end, dying right there in the arms of our beloved hero.
You know what, guys? I'm feeling like a
like a dark foreboding inside me that the rest of this game is going to be on the sad side of things. I can't honestly say I really want to feel that way, especially considering my own life is sad enough in and of itself. Look, since I've already shown you plenty of the game's story, discussed the enjoyable gameplay it has to offer, and pretty much said every nice thing that I possibly could say about it, why don't I just wrap it up right here? I mean, isn't there a saying that says, quit while you're ahead? I mean, this point seems about as good a point as any to leave off on, and just conclude by saying, it's a great game. Sure, a couple of minor flaws crop up here and there, but a lot of the games we consider classics today have a glitch or two in them, so from that you could argue what video game is perfect, right? This game is adorable, it controls great, the soundtrack is cool, and it's a fun ride. Go play it. Enough said. Hey, Dingleberry, wake the fuck up! Relax, I'm only here to deliver a message. I'm not gonna rape you or possess your body or anything like that.
So you're not like my evil twin or something?
No! Like I said, I'm here with a message, and this message is for you. Does it involve Starbucks? Are you fucking serious? Ah. You're like an exact duplicate of me, though. Same voice, same face, same body. If you're not my evil twin, well then who are you? I'm another version of you from an alternate universe. In that universe, I never was a video game reviewer, but a ranter on the internet. My YouTube followers know me as David or G320 or whatever the fuck you want to call me. Whoa. So, if you're from like a different universe, how did you end up here? Oh, jeez. Look, I found a tear in the fabric of the space-time continuum. Discovered it in my room one day while I was doing a whole lot of this. Anyway, when I got up close to it, I stuck my hands inside, making the tear even bigger, but I made it so big that I ended up falling inside of it. And I ended up falling into this weird dimension where I could hop between universes. Like, imagine the level select screen in one of your illustrious video games, but instead of different levels, you get to select between different universes. Does that make sense? Yeah. I think so. Anyway, while I was in that dimension, I met someone who told me I had to come to this universe, make myself known to you, and tell you something. That video game you started reviewing, you have to finish it. Beginning to end. But I summed it up. I said everything about it that could possibly be said. Except for the levels I decided not to play. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Summing it up is not the same thing as finishing the main quest. You have to go back and beat the rest of those levels. But the game was headed in a very depressing direction. If I make it all the way to the end, I might end up sadder and more depressed than I am now. Maybe so, but the fate of Helsing 920's spirit depends on this. What are you talking about? Helsing is dead! He may have died, but his spirit is still very much alive. A human spirit lives forever. Go on. You see, after your encounter with the Tails doll, the monster left the planet Earth to embark on a secret mission to outer space. During that secret mission, however, he was sadly overtaken by a sudden meteor shower, crash-landed in the Pacific Ocean, and drowned to death.
Damn.
Yeah, but that's not the worst of it. Because he was linked with who was good friends with Helsing-920, his death caused a glitch in the Pilgrimage of Souls.
The Pilgrimage of Souls?
When a man of good character dies, his spirit is transferred to the Pilgrimage of Souls. Once there, it is up to them to trek to the destination of Valhalla, where all good souls celebrate their lives and continue a happy existence indefinitely. During his time in the Pilgrimage of Souls, Helsing-920 was almost at the door to Valhalla when the death of the Tails doll happened. In the very same moment, a mighty wind blew him off course and into the realm of spirit limbo.
What happens to him there?
The honest answer is nothing. He is unable to move or speak, but alive all the same.
Wow. So how do we help put him back where he was on course?
You beat the fucking game.
Looks as though I'm being forced to continue, guys. Don't worry, Helsing. It would be an honor for me to sacrifice my earthly happiness for your joy in eternity.
Picking up where we left off after the tragic passing of Klonoa's grandfather, Hugh Pow convinces Klonoa that despite his immense grief, both of them need to move forward and retrieve the moon pendant from Gadius. Just when Klonoa questions how they would go about this, Pamela, the beloved fish Carl's mother from Jugpot, makes another appearance, embracing them both. She informs them that she received word of the pendant's danger from Forlock's granny and King Sidoff. Then she invites them both to climb on her back. Once settled in, she flies them all straight to the Temple of the Sun. She drops them off at the entrance, stating that she cannot accompany them inside due to the limitations of her own body. Her final words to them are simply a caution to be careful. Inside, they meet the friendly temple priests, Solar and Solil, who give them both a warm welcome, telling them that they've both been anticipating their arrival. Right after this is when Solar and Solil show us the temple's 4 colored pedestals on which the 4 colored orbs must be placed. This was the legend that Forlock's granny spoke of to us in level 6. Anyway, the problem is that the 4 orbs have been scattered by Gadius and his minions, and we have to retrieve them all, bring them back inside the temple, and put them back on the pedestals where they belong. Now, collecting all these orbs will definitely take some time, so if you're going to play this level, you might want to come armed with either a pot of coffee or some Jolt Cola. Oh, wait a minute, they stopped making that, didn't they? Shit. Well, if you don't like coffee, just get your preferred brand of energy drinks. How's that? This is another one of those levels in the game where finding the right rooms to go in can be difficult and may even require a bit of backtracking on the player's part. But once you finally figure it out, it feels very rewarding. Anyway, once all the orbs are collected and placed onto their respective pedestals, the big door opens and we walk inside to find a large platform with a switch next to it. After throwing the switch, a gigantic ray of light emits from the platform. After this, Solar and Salil show up again and inform us that this is actually a solar eclipse, implying that something much better was supposed to happen from the switch being thrown, but didn't due to the lack of the moon pendant. From this and the other recent events, they discover that it's Gadius who has the pendant. They also give a bit of background on Gadius himself, telling us that he is a creature of nightmares who was shunned by the rest of the dream world long ago and sentenced to 3,000 years of sleep for using his powers for evil. Since his awakening, he has been out for vengeance. So we continue our journey by jumping onto the platform emitting the solar eclipse, which is referred to by Solar and Salil as the path to the altar, and the platform takes us upward. With that, we move on to the next level. Between Light and Darkness is the name of level 9, and the first thing that happens here is Klonoa finds the temple's high priest, Moyer, who has suffered battle damage. He tells us what we figure out almost right away, that he was attacked by Gadius and his cohorts. When Klonoa asks him where he can find Gadius, Moyer tells him that it's no use and that Gadius has already opened the Moon Gate and begun carrying out his evil plan. He continues to speak, telling us that the Moon Kingdom crest is what accumulates dream power. The result of this is that it gives Phantomile, the dream world, form. Gadius intends to switch out that dream with nightmares and unleash a wicked spell of evil upon the world. Hugh-Pow reassures us that even if the Moon Kingdom does make an appearance, he and Klonoa can still stop Gadius. Moyer's final words to us before allowing us into the sanctuary are, "The solar eclipse gives power to the evil ones. Take advantage of your enemies while there is still light." So as we venture into the level, we find out that what Moyer meant by that statement was that when the darkness overtakes the land, the enemies become temporarily invincible. While this is happening, you have to wait for the light to return, which takes about 7 seconds before you can kill them again and use them for puzzle solving. At times this requires a bit of strategy and patience, but once you get the hang of it, this is a pretty interesting gameplay mechanic, and I think this is a great way to spice up the platforming by adding a different twist on things. Besides the unique and interesting new approach to platforming, the other thing that really caught my attention about this level was its music. This was an all-around wonderfully composed piece of music and definitely has to be one of the best tracks in the game. Just take a listen to it. If you don't think that's badass, something is fucking wrong with your head! Anyway, at the end of the level, you enter a room with another platform of light that takes you upward. That's when we have another encounter with Gadius, who is none too happy that we made it this far. He briefly antagonizes Joka for not putting a stop to Klonoa and Hugh-Pow's progress, and then goes into more detail about his plans. Apparently, the Moon Kingdom is supposed to bear something called the Egg of Destruction, which will benefit Gadius in his aim to cause chaos. Shortly after explaining this, he disappears. But before Klonoa and Hugh-Pow can charge after him, Joka stands in their way again, except this time he finally decides to stop being a pussy and face up to us himself. This is a very interesting boss battle, to say the least. What you have to do is hurl respawning enemies at him 2 or 3 times. Then he will summon a darkness over the land which will make him and the other enemies invincible and try to attack you during this time. While this is going on, the platform you walk upon will transform into a bunch of colored cubes. What you have to do is walk across every cube until they all turn yellow, which will revert the environment to day and will return Joka to a vulnerable position for your attacks. Definitely challenging, but very rewarding in the long run. Anyway, when you finally land the last hit on him, Joka falls down and delivers a final word of warning about the coming of the Moon Kingdom and how Phantomile will fall into darkness afterwards. Then he explodes right as something else begins to happen. So Pamela drops us off at the entrance to the Moon Kingdom. Right before the game throws you into the level, however, Hugh-Pow is shown to be in a bit of a melancholic moment. But when Klonoa asks him what's bothering him, he ultimately chalks it up to Gadius and his plans needing to be stopped. Sounds like somebody's hiding something, eh? In this level, number 10, the goal is to collect these colored gemstones which open these respective colored blockades in front of doors you must go through to progress. The only trouble I had with this level was after I finally made all those blockades disappear, I got stuck at one point wondering why the path to progression had suddenly become so unclear. I went back, relentlessly exploring areas I had already traversed, looking for whatever it was I thought I missed in them. And it only took me forever to figure out that I needed to backtrack to this secondary main area, go through the door with the yellow and blue triangles atop and in front of it, and then go upwards to this area that was previously locked before. This was very confusing, and figuring it out was a little more frustrating than it was fun. For those of you who have girlfriends and wives, you know how you love that woman, but sometimes she makes you just want to get a can of gasoline, pour it all over yourself, and then drop a lit cigarette? This game and I have the same kind of relationship at points. Anyway, after that point, you just continue forward, conquer these disappearing platforms, and then at last you reach this room here, where you grab the final gemstone, which grants you access to jump onto this moving platform that takes you upward to level 11. But before we begin, we get our next piece of the story. Right away, Klonoa knows that something is up when one of the guards immediately refers to Hugh-Pow as Sire and Sir Hugh-Pow respectively. The guard informs Hugh-Pow that the entire Moon Kingdom has been taken over by Gadius. When Hugh-Pow expresses shock at this discovery, the Queen comes out to greet them and explains that Gadius was able to take over the Moon Kingdom by imprisoning the Diva Lefise in the Egg of Destruction and dumping nightmare energy into it. The goal now is to keep the egg from being released outside of the kingdom. When Hugh-Pow refers to the Queen as Mother, Klonoa finally asks what the hell is going on. This is what happens next. Isn't it great to know the power of true friendship? In level 11, the mission is to raise these pillars out of the way, which act as barricades in your path to the other doors you need to go through. And how do we accomplish this? By activating switches, or in some cases, a series of switches within a limited amount of time. You guys starting to see a pattern here with these levels yet? For any of you gamers out there who just crave platformers with a heaping dose of puzzle-solving goodness, if you haven't played this game yet, no excuses, you fucking need to. Although I must confess that while I enjoyed this level of the game, there was this one particular section that absolutely frustrated the hell out of me, because in this particular section, you have to use these respawning enemies to hop up on these moving platforms and make it to the top of this cliff area without getting hit by the boomerangs these enemies will be tossing at you. There is only one way to get past this part. You try to do it any other way, you will get hit by the boomerangs and sent flying back down to the beginning. And I couldn't figure it out on my first attempted playthrough. I had to distance myself from it and come back to it later because it was pissing me off that much. But anyway, what you're seeing right now is all the footage of me trying to use every wrong way possible to succeed at the task. The next piece of footage I'm about to show you is how you successfully get past this part. Yeah, that's how to do it. If that looked easy to you, all I can say is try playing the damn game yourself. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, when we finally enter the last door in the level, we are treated to our next part of the story. So we finally face Gadius head-on in his last-ditch effort to destroy Klonoa and Hupao. Now, I definitely found this boss battle inventive, and also that it featured more of the challenge that I would have appreciated from the game's earlier boss battles. At first, you have to dodge these glowing blue orbs of doom while hurling enemies into the white spot at the center of his cloak. Then he takes a second form in which he hurls groups of enemies at you, which are not at all easy to avoid. But it can be done, if you keep at it and persevere. You also have to be mindful of these other glowing orbs that transport you to a different area of this platform where you are a lot more vulnerable to Gadius's attacks, when in this situation, the only escape is to make it all the way over to the other side, where another glowing orb takes you back to the previous area. In his third and final form, he sends this giant triangle which appears to be made out of high voltage electricity that makes attempts to hurt you. But since the triangle also contains respawning enemies, at a certain point it will dump the enemies out, and you will have to catch some of them and quickly start throwing them at the white spot in his cloak I mentioned earlier. After his defeat, we reconnect with a few old friends of ours, but not before Gadius's last words tell us that the battle is not over. So here we are at last at the game's final and arguably most punishing level. We combat Nahatum, the monster of nightmares that Gadius unleashed before his death. So as the cutscene established, we have to fill each one of these 5 cannons, which are operated by our friends, with respawning enemies, but do so while dodging shockwaves of fire and a long frog-like tongue. It takes a long time, but it does leave you feeling accomplished. But that sense of accomplishment won't last long, as just when you think the battle is over, the monster sucks you into his mouth, where you are transported to another dimension where you must contend with none other than the monster's face. First attack pattern, throw enemies directly at these 4 glowing gemstones when the platform, which operates like a seesaw, tips over and they are within reach. Second attack pattern, destroy this giant gemstone that bounces around in the background by throwing enemies at it while dodging the monster's laser attacks. So then we go back to where we were before, just now with pits to hover over. We load the cannons this time around by, as Baloo said, tossing the enemies downward using the double jump maneuver when the time is right, while avoiding the monster's attacks, of course. Accomplish that, and he's history.
So, that's how it all ends. We save the day at the cost of a beautiful friendship. I mean, can you just imagine being suddenly cut off forever from your best friend? Please. Just don't hurt me anymore.
Tonight I'm looking at Cheetah Men 2. They made a sequel out of one of those shitty games from Action 52. Absolutely everything about this fucking game is bad. The graphics are so bad they literally made my eyes hurt. Just look at this shit.
So, now that I've thoroughly pissed off at least a dozen people, until next time, folks, take care, and I'll see you all in the near future. Peace.
See you in the future, Helsing. Hey, the hell is...
Must be trying, angel gone, to wear a halo all the time. Angel gone, and it gets a little crooked. You find another saint who's looking, so your heaven ends in ruin. You don't know what you're doing, but you do it all the time. Do it all the time, angel gone, 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 angel. I see you alone and I worry. The past starts getting blurry. You got no one to talk to, and I miss your shouldn't ought tos, and I miss your tender side. Should we try, angel gone? start calling all the angels who have fallen, playing Russian roulette with Satan around those pearly gates in St. Peter, he won't mind. St. Peter, he won't mind. Angel gone, 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 angel gone. How do